My name is Elias Thorne. I'm 36 years old, and I suppose you could say I build tranquility for a living. I'm a landscape architect in Port Blossom, a small city tucked into the coastline of the Pacific Northwest, where the mist hangs heavy in the Douglas firs, and the air always carries a faint, briny scent of the sea. For the better part of a decade, my farm, Brilliant Designs, has been my quiet passion. I spend my days sketching out stone pathways, picking native ferns that will thrive in a perpetual damp, and orchestrating the gentle slope of a retaining wall. There is a peace in it, a satisfying logic. You put the right plant in the right place, give it what it needs, and it will grow. For a long time, I believed people were the same. My wife, Clara, was the vibrant, unexpected wildflower in the carefully curated garden of my life. We met 6 years ago, married after 3. She ran a small, charmingly cluttered boutique downtown called the Gilded Finch, a place filled with artisanal candles, hand-thrown pottery, and ethically sourced textiles. She had a laugh that could cut through the thickest coastal fog, and a spirit that seemed to dance, even when she was standing still. I was the sturdy oak. She was the climbing jasmine that wrapped around me, adding color and fragrance to my world. Our home, a modest cedar shingled house overlooking the bay, was our sanctuary. I tended the gardens. She filled the inside with art, music, and the scent of whatever new tea she was brewing. Our life was good, but it wasn't without its quiet pressures. The boutique was more a labor of love than a lucrative business, and we carried the weight of a mortgage and the student loans that had financed my master's degree. We were comfortable, but not extravagant. The dream began subtly, a whisper that grew into a constant, melodic hum in our lives. Clara had an old station wagon, a relic from her college days that was becoming more rust than car. It sputtered and groaned, and every trip to source new inventory for her shop was a gamble. For over a year, she'd been building a vision board, not for a simple car, but for something more, a customized Sprinter van. She imagined it painted a deep forest green, with the Gilded Finch lettered in elegant gold script on the side. It would be a mobile extension of her shop, a way to do pop-ups at farmers' markets, to travel to craft fairs up and down the coast. It was more than a vehicle. It was a vessel for her dreams of expansion, of freedom. The price tag was steep, around $45,000 for the van, and the custom interior she envisioned. It was an impossible sum, floating high above our carefully balanced budget. But seeing the light in her eyes when she talked about it, hearing the hope in her voice, I felt that familiar, deep-seated urge to be her foundation, the one who made things possible. "We'll find a way," I told her one evening, tracing the outline of a van she'd sketched in a notebook. "How, Eli?" she'd sighed, her optimism momentarily clouded. "It feels like a fantasy." "It's not," I said, my mind already turning over the possibilities. "It's a project, and I'm good at projects." That's when I started taking on every extra project Brilliant Designs could handle. I told my business partner I was available for any weekend consultation, any rush job, any client who needed a plan drafted on a tight deadline. The world of landscape architecture isn't typically an emergency service, but for wealthy homeowners wanting a new patio installed before a summer party, or a developer needing blueprints for a new subdivision, a willingness to work all hours was a valuable commodity. For 3 solid months, my life became a blur of drafting tables, site visits, and client meetings. I was leaving the house before the sun burned the mist off the water, and returning long after the lights of the ferries had become lonely stars. On the dark expanse of the bay, I subsisted on lukewarm coffee and the quiet satisfaction of watching the balance in our dedicated savings accounts. One-eyed mentally labeled the Finch fund slowly, steadily climb. Clara was, at first, wonderfully supportive. She'd leave a plate of dinner for me in the oven and a little note on the counter. My hero, don't work too hard. She spoke of my efforts with a kind of romantic reverence, telling our friends how I was building her dream, one stone patio at a time. Her best friend, Jenna, would often come over to keep her company on the long evenings I was away. Jenna was sharp, recently divorced, and carried a certain cynical polish that I'd always found a little jarring, but Clara adored her. They'd drink wine, watch old movies, and fill the quiet house with their laughter. I was glad Clara wasn't lonely. It made the sacrifice feel cleaner, more worthwhile. The evening it all came apart was a Tuesday in late October. The perpetual Pacific Northwest drizzle had turned into a full-blown tempest, and the site I was supposed to be surveying, a windswept bluff overlooking the strait, was a muddy, impossible mess. My client canceled, and for the first time in weeks, I found myself heading home at 6:30 in the evening. I pulled into our gravel driveway. The engine of my truck, the only sound besides the drumming of rain on the roof. I saw Jenny's car parked near the porch, a familiar sight. I felt a quiet surge of affection for Clara, picturing her warm and safe inside, sharing a bottle of wine with her friend. I decided not to announce my arrival, to just slip in, grab a glass of water, and surprise her. I let myself in through the side door that led into the laundry room, shaking off my wet boots and rain jacket in the dim light. The sound of their voices drifted from the kitchen, low and conspiratorial. I paused, not wanting to interrupt, and in that pause, the world as I knew it fractured. You just have to be smart about the timing, Jenna was saying, her voice crisp and clear. I know, Clara replied, and her tone was different, not the dreamy, artistic lilt I loved, but something harder, more calculated. It's just with Eli working so much, it feels like the perfect window, a chance to really see. My bro followed. See what? A new supplier for the shop. Clara, we've been talking about this for a month. Jenna pressed. You deserve to know if the grass is actually greener. You can't spend your whole life wondering. He's a good man, but is he the right man for the rest of your life? You need to explore that feeling. Explore that feeling. The phrase hung in the air, cold and sharp. My hand, reaching for the doorknob, froze. But what if it all blows up? Clara's voice was a whisper of fear and excitement. What about the house? The money for the van? That's the beauty of it, Jenna said, and I could almost hear the thin smile in her voice. You take a little space. You tell him you need to find yourself. You go. You have your adventure. And if it doesn't work out, Eli will be right here waiting for you. He's the safe harbor. He'd take you back in a heartbeat. He's too good for his own good. You can always come home. The breath left my body in a silent rush, as if I'd been punched in the gut. The kitchen, just a few feet away, suddenly felt like a foreign country. They weren't talking about suppliers or art fairs. They were talking about me, about our marriage. Our life together was not a sanctuary. It was a safe harbor, a backup plan for an adventure she was planning to have. And I, the man working 70-hour weeks to build her dream, was the safety net she intended to use while she explored sleeping with someone else. I didn't move. I couldn't. I just stood there in the dark, my soaked feet cold on the linoleum, listening to the two most important women in my life year, so I thought dismantling it all with casual, brutal precision. I heard the clink of glasses, a soft laugh from Clara, and then something about a musician she'd met at the arts co-op. Quietly, so quietly I could hear the blood pounding in my ears, I backed away. I slipped my wet boots back on, pulled on my jacket, and retreated through the side door into the relentless rain. I sat in my truck for a long time, the windshield wipers swishing a frantic, hypnotic rhythm, trying to make sense of the new, jagged landscape of my life. Then I started the engine and drove, with no destination in mind, just the need to put distance between myself and the ruin of that conversation. The days that followed were a masterclass in dissociation. I existed in a state of suspended reality, moving through the motions of my life while a silent, screaming vortex spun inside me. I'd go to work, discuss drainage solutions and the merits of Japanese maples, and then come home to Clara, who was suddenly brimming with a pensive, fragile energy. She'd look at me with wide, searching eyes and talk in vague, philosophical terms. Don't you ever feel like you are just on a path you chose a long time ago, without really knowing where it leads? She asked one night as we cleared the dinner plates. Sometimes, I said, my voice carefully neutral, but I like my path. But what if there's another path? She pressed gently. One you haven't even seen yet? Don't you think people can love each other, but still need to see the rest of the map? It was all I could do not to drop the plate in my hand. She was testing the waters, rehearsing her lines, the script she and Jenna had written in my kitchen. The performance reached its climax on Friday. She sat me down on the sofa, her hands twisting in her lap. She spoke of feeling lost, of getting married young or 30 and 33, hardly children, and of a deep, unsettling need for perspective. She loved me, she insisted, tears welling in her eyes, but she wasn't sure if she was in love with me anymore. I think I need some space, Eli, she said, her voice trembling with practiced sincerity. Just some time to be on my own, to figure out who I am without us. She suggested staying with Jenna for a few weeks. Maybe they'd take a little road trip, clear her head. This isn't the end, she assured me, reaching for my hand. It's just a pause. If we are meant to be, this will only make us stronger. I looked at her, at this woman I had loved with the steady, quiet force of a river, and felt nothing but a profound horror calm. The grief had already happened in the cab of my truck, in the lane. This was just the echo. Is there someone else, Clara? I asked, my voice even. No, of course not, she said, her eyes wide with faint shock. I would never do that to you. This is about me. I just need to be alone. Okay, I said, the single word falling like a stone into the silence between us. If that's what you need. The relief that washed over her face was unmistakable. She hadn't expected it to be so easy. She thought I was just her good, dependable Eli, her safe harbor, waiting patiently for her return. What she didn't know was that on Thursday morning, I had sat in the hushed, wood-paneled office of a divorce attorney, a woman named Miss Albright, whose calm demeanor was a balm to my shattered nerves. I had a prenuptial agreement, a document Clara had signed with a breezy nonchalance years ago, saying it was just a smart formality. Now, it was the one solid piece of ground in a world that had turned to quicksand. On Sunday, Clara packed 2 suitcases and a few boxes of books and art supplies. At the door, she hugged me tightly, burying her face in my shoulder. I'll miss you, she whispered. I hope you'll still be here when I figure things out. You take all the time you need, I told her, my hands resting limply on her back. The moment her car disappeared down the driveway, I went back inside, and the quiet of the house descended on me. It was no longer a sanctuary. It was just a building. The next morning, I was at the bank when it opened. I sat with a personal banker and methodically, calmly, transferred the entire balance of our joint savings, including the $22,000 I had painstakingly earned for the Finch Fund into a new account solely in my name. The prenup was clear. Assets earned during the marriage through my business were mine. I left our joint checking account open, but rerouted my paycheck to my new private account. It wasn't an act of revenge. It was an act of preservation. I was building a seawall before the hurricane made landfall. On Tuesday, Ms. Albright finalized the divorce papers. They were simple, citing irreconcilable differences. No accusations, no drama. Just a clean, legal dissolution based on the terms we had both agreed to when our future seemed boundless. On Wednesday evening, my phone buzzed with a text from Clara. Thinking of you. I've been doing a lot of soul searching. Can we talk tomorrow? I'm ready to start figuring out our future. My fingers were steady as I typed my reply. I've been doing a lot of thinking, too. Tomorrow evening would be good. I'm also ready to discuss the future. She arrived the next night bearing a container of our favorite Thai curry, a peace offering. She looked beautiful. Her face flushed with a mixture of nervousness and excitement. She launched into a carefully prepared speech about how her time away had been a revelation, how it had made her realize that our quiet life together was all she ever truly wanted. She said, "Sometime you have to step away from a beautiful painting to truly appreciate its composition." She was in the middle of a metaphor about perspective when I slid a thick manila envelope across the coffee table toward her. "What's this?" she asked, her smile faltering. "Our future," I said quietly. "Or at least, the next step." I have never, in my life, seen a human face register so many emotions in such a short span of time. Confusion, disbelief, a flash of fear, and then a deep, cuddling anger. "Divorce papers," she hissed, her voice low and venomous. "Are you kidding me? This is some kind of sick joke." "Eli, because I needed a little space? You're this dramatic." "I know what kind of space you needed, Clara," I said, my voice still quiet, but with a core of steel I didn't know I possessed. "And I decided to give you all the space in the world, permanently." She demanded to know what I meant. So I told her. I told her about the canceled site visit, about the side door, about standing in the dark laundry room listening to her, and Jenna map out her infidelity, with my marriage as her safety net. I didn't raise my voice. I just laid out the facts, piece by painful piece. The color drained from her face, leaving behind a mask of pure, unadulterated shock. Not shock that I was hurt, but shock that she had been caught. She tried to deny it. Of course, I had misunderstood. I'd taken things out of context. They were just talking, just fantasizing. She never would have actually done anything. "That's good," I said calmly. "That will make the divorce much cleaner. No adultery to complicate things. Just two people who want different futures." That's when the conversation turned. Her fear and anger coalesced into something else, panicked pragmatism. "But what about money?" she asked, her eyes darting around the room as if seeking an escape route. "I'll need to find my own place. And the van, I'll need a reliable vehicle. If I'm starting over, can I get some money from the savings account?" I looked at her, this woman who, moments before, had been professing her undying appreciation for our life together, and I felt the last, lingering ember of love for her go cold. Her first thought wasn't about us, about the 6 years we had shared. It was about the money. "The joint savings account has been closed," I told her, "and the money I earned working all that overtime for the last 3 months, it's in an account you can't access." Funny how that worked out. I decided I wasn't interested in funding your journey of self-discovery after all. The rage that erupted from her was volcanic. She called me controlling, cruel. She accused me of financial abuse, of trapping her. I simply reminded her of the document she had signed so breezily 3 years ago, the one that stipulated my earnings were mine, just as her boutique and its assets were hers. I reminded her that the Finch Fund she had been counting on for her independence tour was funded entirely by the long, lonely nights I had spent working, believing I was building a dream for us, not for her and some musician from the arts co-op. She left shortly after that, taking the container of Thai curry with her. The house was silent again, but this time, it was a different kind of quiet. It wasn't empty. For the first time in months, it felt clean. It felt like mine. The days following the service of the papers were a strange lesson in human nature. I had expected silence, perhaps a bitter text or two. Instead, I got a deluge. Clara, it turned out, was not one to go quietly. The first offensive was an early morning ambush. She appeared on my doorstep at dawn, pounding on the door, her face streaked with tears. She was sorry, she sobbed. So deeply, profoundly sorry. But not for the plan itself. She was sorry she'd been caught. She admitted to the conversations with Jenna, blaming her friend's bitter influence for poisoning her mind. She confessed there was, in fact, a musician and guitarist named Leo Ho had been paying her attention. Nothing had happened, she swore, but she had been curious. The divorce papers, she cried, had been a terrifying wake-up call. They made her realize I was the only thing she wanted. Can't we try counseling? Eli, she pleaded, her hands gripping my arm. Don't throw away 6 years over a stupid fantasy. I looked at her, at the raw desperation in her eyes, and I saw the truth with painful clarity. She wasn't fighting for me. She was fighting against the consequences of her own actions. The adventure hadn't panned out. The safety net was being retracted, and she was terrified of the fall. The time for counseling was before you plan an affair. Clara, I said, gently removing her hand from my arm. The ship has sailed. Then came the call from Jenna. Her voice was laced with a syrupy, false concern. She wanted me to know that Clara was a wreck, that I was being heartless. People make mistakes. Eli, she said, are you really going to destroy her life over a mistake she didn't even make yet? Did you think I deserved to have my life destroyed over it? Jenna? I asked, my voice level. Should I have just kept working, saving money for a van she was going to use to drive away from me, and waited patiently for her to decide if I was still a good enough option? There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. I didn't realize you heard, she finally mumbled. I heard enough, I said. Clara is a grown woman. If she's struggling, maybe you can help her find a solution that doesn't involve manipulating me. I hung up the phone, my hand steady. I was learning to build boundaries, not with stone and timber, but with words. The escalation, when it came, was both desperate and absurd. One afternoon, I received a call from my business partner. An anonymous email had been sent to our general inbox, claiming I was emotionally unstable due to a volatile divorce and might be a liability to our clients. My partner, a good man who knew me well, had deleted it immediately and called me to give me a heads up. It was a clumsy, transparent attempt to create chaos in my professional life. Then came the pregnancy. She showed up one evening, looking pale and fragile. She wouldn't come inside, just stood on the porch, clutching her stomach. I have something to tell you, she whispered, her eyes wide. I'm pregnant. For a terrifying moment, the world tilted. A child. It changed everything. But then, the logical part of my brain, the part that calculates gradients and load-bearing capacities, kicked in. I did the math. The timeline was wrong. It was too soon for her to know with any certainty. We haven't been together in over a month. Clara, I said carefully. It could be from before. She insisted, her voice gaining strength. I've been feeling strange for weeks. I took a test this morning. It was positive. We owe it to this baby. Eli, we have to try to make this work. If you are pregnant, I said, my voice gentle but firm, then the first thing we need to do is get confirmation from a doctor. We can go together tomorrow. We will absolutely figure out how to be good co-parents. But it doesn't change the divorce. Her face fell. This wasn't the checkmate she'd envisioned. She had expected me to crumble, to pull her into my arms and call off the lawyers. My calm, practical response had disarmed her. She left after a few more minutes of flustered protestations, and I never heard another word about the baby. The final, bizarre act of this tragic play came a week later. I got home late from a long day on site to find my front door unlocked, left slightly ajar. My heart hammered against my ribs. I called the police from my truck, my mind racing through worst-case scenarios. 2 officers arrived and cleared the house. Nothing was stolen. Nothing was broken. But on the polished surface of the kitchen island, gleaming under the truck lighting, was a single object, Clara's key to the house. She had let herself in, walked through the silent rooms of our former life, and left her key behind. It was a final, theatrical gesture of surrender, but also a profound violation of the new boundaries I was trying to establish. The next day, I had all the locks changed. I also installed a small, discreet security camera by the front door, not because I was afraid of her, but because I was finally learning the most important lesson in landscape design. A healthy garden needs a strong fence. You cannot let just anything wander in and trample the new shoots. The legal process dragged on, a slow, grinding machine. Clara's lawyer filed motions to delay, claim I was hiding assets. Each one was methodically dismissed by the judge, our prenuptial agreement holding firm like bedrock. It was a war of attrition, designed to wear me down, to make me so tired of the fight that I would offer a settlement just to make it stop. But I didn't. Every motion, every delay, only strengthened my resolve. I was no longer the man who would work himself to exhaustion for someone else's dream. I was tending to my own garden now. It's been almost a year. The divorce was finalized 2 months ago. Clara sold her half of the house to me, using the money to put a down payment on a small condo across town. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that she sold the Gilded Finch. The pressure of running it alone was too much. I don't know what she does now. I see her car, the same old sputtering station wagon, around town sometimes. But we've never crossed paths. My life is quiet now. The house is filled with my things, books on horticulture, blueprints spread across the dining room table, the earthy scent of potting soil. Some nights, The silence is a heavy blanket. I grieve for the marriage I thought I had, for the woman I thought I loved. There is a phantom limb quality to her absence. I'll sometimes turn to tell her something funny I saw, only to find the room empty. But most days, the quiet is a bomb. It's a piece of solid ground under my feet. I've started designing a new section of my own garden. In the corner, where a thick patch of invasive ivy once grew, I spent weeks clearing it out, digging up the tenacious roots until the soil was dark and clean. I haven't decided what to plant there yet. Maybe something that takes time to mature, something that requires patience and care, something that, once it takes root, is strong enough to withstand any storm. I look at the empty patch of earth, not with a sense of loss for what was there, but with a gentle, hopeful curiosity for what is to come. I am the architect of this landscape now, and for the first time in a very long time, I trust the foundation.